Bernie Sanders gave a major speech yesterday, and many in the media, in the political class, expected that this was going to be his speech where he dropped out, where he said, I'm done with the actual attempt to become the nominee, and I'm going to endorse Hillary Clinton. And if you watched it, you know by now that he didn't actually do that. But his set of statements was complicated, and there's a lot that I think that we can draw from it. We're going to play just a little bit first to set the scene for one of the things that he plans to do going forward.
The major political task that together we face in the next 5 months is to make certain that Donald Trump is defeated and defeated badly. And I personally intend to begin my role in that process in a very short period of time.
Now, there's a lot of parts that we're going to break down. We've got other quotes, but I think that that's an interesting section because, of course, he's already been attacking Donald Trump. He's already been laying out the case for why he would be a much better president than Donald Trump. So to say that he's going to begin his part as part of the battle against Donald Trump, I think is interesting. To say that that is forthcoming, that he hasn't already been doing that.
It's because he's a liar.
He's a big liar. So what do you think about
liar.
that? Yeah, we've been making that case for a year now, I think.
Well, I think he's saying that, you know what, I don't have to support money in politics. I don't have to pretend that I'm for muscular foreign policy. I don't have to pretend that I'm for, Wall Street still screwing over everybody. But I can still be against Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing everybody's asking that question. How could you possibly, the whole reason Bernie Sanders got into the race was because no one else would, right? He didn't want to do this, right? So he did because nobody else would get in, and he didn't want to just hand it, see the Democratic Party keep doing this one party of money thing, right? So I love him.
I know that you do. Yeah, and look, a lot of people were tweeting me that they were tearing up listening to what he said, especially in the section where he was going through and he was thanking all the people who've helped him out, which, by the way, he did do the big Tuesday, the night of the California primary, and everybody believed then that that's what politicians do when they're about to exit a race. He's done it twice now. That doesn't seem to be what he does when he exits the race, so don't worry too much if he starts to do that. Did you catch much of it? What did you think about what he said and the response in the media?
Well, I think what he said is what he feels. I think he probably feels that there's some chance between now and the convention that, who knows, he could still wind up being the nominee if something were to happen. Mm-hmm. Now, the odds of that are pretty low. And at the same time, I think he recognizes Trump's a danger to this republic. Yeah. Straight up. And so I'm sure he's going to do what he can. I'd like him to help lead the climate change movement.
To focus on that.
Dude, it's the biggest issue we face.
I've been making the same case, and look, the way that he speaks about the issue is exactly the way that it needs to be, that it's a national security issue, mm-hmm. that it's an issue that it's the most important single issue, the biggest single threat to the continuation of our civilization. Aside from perhaps loose nukes. But even that, no, that doesn't pose an existential threat to the entirety of the human race the way climate change does.
Wait, whoa. No, I think you're overlooking. Sometimes people have to make cakes for gay people. That is very...
That's second biggest issue.
Second biggest, okay?
Yeah, they both involve heating stuff up.
Yeah, they sure do.
What did you think, Michael?
I really wanted to be Bernie or bust, and I really wanted to stand up for some principle. But it's as the idea keeps going and we keep seeing him not even go to the left, we kind of anticipated that he would start pushing the left because he just does what people want to say, but he's still continuing the hateful rhetoric. So now that we're stuck with that defeating Trump is this incredibly low bar but important thing we have to do, I don't know what other options we're left with.
Well, I think it's totally fair to see it as a low bar. I personally think it's an extremely important bar.
Yeah.
Regardless of who is the person who beats him and beats him badly. Now, look, there are other options theoretically, and people ask me all the time.
In all fairness, he said more than just that in his speech. He also said he's going to support progressive congressional candidates, mm-hmm. and he wants people to get involved in local races. And if you're going to build up an organization that's actually going to have change in this country, you need it at the local level, the state level, as well as the national level. And we need a couple years to build that.
Well, why don't we read a section of that then on that topic? We can no longer ignore the fact that, sadly, the current Democratic Party leadership has turned its back on dozens of states in this country and has allowed right-wing politicians to win elections in some states with virtually no opposition, including some of the poorest states in America. The Democratic Party needs a 50-state strategy. We need a new generation of people actively involved in public service who are prepared to provide the quality of life the American people deserve. There he was talking about people not necessarily running for political office. He was stressing that there are many different positions that you can help out your community and help out the country with. But he also has a section on his website specifically designed to help people run for office locally or at the state level. I saw some reference to something like 6,000 people using that in the first small time period right afterward. And so there was a lot about the continuation of his fight and what he plans to do. It's one thing to try to figure out what he's going to do at the convention. And my take from the entirety of his speech is that he could be waiting, and anything is possible. We've seen some high-profile hacks come out recently with a lot of information that looks really bad for Hillary Clinton and the DNC. But I think it's more likely that he's not going to be pushing for him to be the nominee. He's not trying to get the superdelegates to flip. His campaign has announced they're not even attempting to do that, nor do they plan to. But that he wants to get as much as he can out of the convention and after the convention, which has a much higher chance of succeeding, realistically. As sad as that may be, we do have to, at some point, accept that sometimes campaigns come to an end. But a political campaign is not necessarily the same thing as a campaign to change the country.
So that's kind of the point I was trying to make earlier, awkwardly. But like when he got into the race, most people when they get into the presidential race, it's literally about them, and about them fulfilling the promise of becoming president. Right? It's more about them than their ideas. He got in because he didn't want to get in. He got in because he felt these ideas needed to be implemented and to fix our country. He needed to advocate for these. He needed to raise people's awareness and consciousness of these issues. So now it's not like, okay, I didn't win, so now screw these issues. No, that's the whole point. It's like a regular politician would go, okay, I'll drop out and become Secretary of State.
And I'm starting to agree with you, with progressive too.
Right.
Progressive, we have to get behind that because you're right, we can't give into the idolatry and just say, I'm with him because it's Bernie. It can't be Bernie or bust. If we're going to say that we're not following people, we're following platforms and pushing progressive agendas, well then naturally he needs to go into that lane if that's what's available, and maybe we get behind Jill Stein so that we still are going for a progressive platform instead of being attached to the ideology that we see others.
Well, and look, he's going to attempt to make the platform at the convention as progressive as possible. And he's gotten some extremely aggressive people who are going to be on the drafting committee to construct that platform. I think if you pay attention to these platforms historically, it's perfectly understandable to say we often end up forgetting about those a minute after the ink is dried on them. And that's true, but there's going to be a lot of media attention on this convention, especially since he's staying in. And so if there's ever an opportunity to demonstrate to the country that these are the principles that we should be fighting for, that some of the strongest, most aggressive progressives think we should be fighting for, that I think is probably it. And we can certainly have a debate about third party, whether he goes independent or whether he runs as part of a Green Party ticket, which people think could happen. I've seen no sign that that's going to happen. But we know how the media would come at that. And there is very little chance that they would give any sort of fair shake to a third-party run, whereas his influence at the convention in a major speech, that's something that millions of people will see, I think.
It's a lot easier to take over an anemic Democratic Party than it is to try and launch a third party. If you go to any Democratic event off election year, you're going to come into a room that you're like, oh, there's a central committee for whatever state, and you're like, there's going to be hundreds of people here. There's like 10, 15 people, like all of them in their 70s.
Yeah.
It's anemic. And if you can get there with a large group of people, you can take over the organization. These are all organizations. It's not a matter of simple numbers. And even though we have the majority of people under 45, I mean, they need that energy. And all you have to do is get, a bunch of friends out when it's time and go take over your local Democratic committee. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
You know what? You've inspired me. I'm going to go.
Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore, future leader of the California Democratic Party.
Watch out, fucking Pasadena. I'm coming. I'm taking over.
Busts in the door, tells him, don't freak out, but I'm taking over this place.
I was going to run. Wes, you bring it up. I was going to run, but I don't know if you know, my congressperson is a female, and a gentleman doesn't run against a lady.
You bro.
I'm telling you, sexist. It's George Clooney taught me that. Sexist. A gentleman doesn't run against a lady. You wait for a year when it's another guy, then you run against the guy. That's
If that ever happens, and if it doesn't, then whatever.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Anyway, yeah, look, there's a lot of speeches that I would have liked.
Can I make one more point about his speech, though? He also came out earlier this week and he said how he wanted to change the Democratic Party, open primaries, and get rid of the W. Wasserman Schultz and stuff like that.
Elimination of superdelegates and same-day voter registration.
So they go to Chuck Todd on that, and Chuck Todd says, boy, seems small. My head almost exploded. For the last year, they've been saying this guy's fairy dust and unicorns, and we need incrementalism, and he's shooting pie in the sky, and all of a sudden he comes out with concrete things that we think we could actually have happen. They're like, it's small. He's just shooting small.
No, I'm fine with that. Okay, it's small. Let's just do it then. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Let's just do all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk about other topics.
And then literally, 30 seconds later, he turned to his other guest, and he said, who's this guy? He hadn't been a Democrat for 5 minutes. He wants to change everything. It's like, so any way the mainstream media at the given moment to dismiss Bernie Sanders or smear him or kind of marginalize him, no matter what, even if the argument is you're going to contradict something you said 30 seconds ago, they will do it. It's every bullshit. They're still doing it. And this guy has had such an effect. It was weird. The other day, Joy Reid I saw her on TV, and she literally said that Bernie Sanders has already accomplished a lot because he's moved Hillary so far to the left. Even though Hillary won't admit that.
Which is frustrating.
It's very frustrating. So there's Joy Reid saying that he's already gotten a lot done.
Yeah.
So this guy, this pie in the sky fairy dust, of course, you aim big.